The fourth of the 4 videos which I intend making this week is about Steiner education and the aims and purposes of Steiner education. There are so many ways of coming at this. I'm only going to take one, but ones which I'm not adopting are already mentioned in the first couple of weeks. One is to help young people become all-round, balanced, well-rounded individuals in thinking, feeling and willing, so they are able to step out as free agents into the world to find their own tasks in life. There are others which are around the same idea, that a well-rounded individual is going to be able to contribute best to society, to help change society for the better. But if you are to look at other aims of Steiner education, I think the first thing we need to do is to transplant ourselves back to 1919, middle of 1919 in Central Europe, where the war has just ended and where economically, culturally, socially, there are ruins all around, so to speak. An extremely difficult time. Steiner, from 1917, started a movement which is known in English as the Movement for Social Renewal, where he was asked and then tried very hard to promote and have adopted nationally in Germany a movement for social renewal, which would renew society to help ensure that the kind of war which had just been gone through and the reasons for the war happening would be avoided as far as was possible. And for that, of course, education was absolutely paramount. So within this movement for social renewal, Steiner identifies three areas. One is the economy, one is rights, and one is the spiritual cultural area. And he ties those to the 3 tenets of the French Revolution, to brotherhood, to equality, and to liberty. Yep. So when he's talking about the economy, he said that what you don't want in the economy is that you have sort of predatory capitalism, which we see quite a lot of. That is not a healthy functioning of the economy. If the economy is set up out of a spirit of fraternity, out of a spirit of brotherhood, of mutual support, then you are going to get a supportive and well-functioning economy, which actually, as it were, is for people and not for either machines or just the benefit of the few. In the rights sphere, the area of rights, he said there the tenet is one of equality. All people have to have the same rights. All people have to be seen as human beings, as equal. And this is then very strongly grounded in notions of social justice. And the other one is the spiritual cultural area, in which we are not, as it were, all equal. We're not all the same. We all have our own avenues we wish to explore. And he says in this, it is really important that within society, this spiritual cultural area is completely free. This includes schools. You're completely free, so that society, so that people can direct this in whichever ways they want to. and this is then liberty, this is freedom. And the opposite is where the flip side of that. If you don't have it, then that then can lead to aggressive nationalism, which is, of course, was very much to the fore in the First World War. So those ideas of three social areas, the economy, the rights, and spiritual cultural, are there very strongly within the grounding of Steiner education, and that the social justice stream, I think, is one of the strongest within that. That's me as an individual, but I think social justice has such strong roots within Steiner education. The text which I've given you is from the beginning of a book, Steiner's main set of lectures on education. The current English translation is The Foundations of Spiritual Experience, human experience, sorry. And it's also known under the old title of The Study of Man, which is much easier to say. It's gendered, and the translation was made in the 60s, but it's also known as The Study of Man. It comprises 14 lectures which were given to the first teachers. These lectures are some of the most interesting and also some of the most demanding ones by Steiner on education. They are foundational. They're also really difficult. As entry points, they are hard, but extremely worthwhile. There's a second set of 14 lectures which he gave later on in the day to the same people, which are printed under the title The Practical Advice to Teachers. And then later in the day, when he obviously sat around and just discussed things with this group of teachers to be, those are published under the title Discussions with Teachers. If you are interested in getting your hands on those, under information in Blackboard, I've made a link available to a Dropbox which I have, and there's a zip file which contains all of Steiner's educational work in ebooks, in PDFs. These are completely legal. They were downloadable, free from the publisher's website, so I went and got them. And if you'd like them to store them on your computer or some hard disk or whatever, do go into information and get them. They are legal, they are free, they can, for study purposes, be interesting to have, particularly because you can search for them. So I've given in this snippet, which I've taken, two introductions and then Steiner's opening address. The introductions I find worthwhile. They're written in very different times. One is an old one is a newer one, and they just give different points of view. The opening address is, I think, the most interesting one. This is very short, it's 3 pages or so, by Steiner, the evening before the first of the lectures to the teachers happened, and he talks about the moral task, the importance morally of opening a school which will lead to the promotion of these qualities of brotherhood, liberty and equality. And also he just says this is a real, it's a cultural deed. This is an important step. We need to show that we are working in harmony with the needs of the times. And he also talks about how the ideals which we all have, it's really interesting to work out what your ideals are, but the ideals which we all have, we need very strongly to work towards, but they then come into contact with the real world. And how do we navigate that really quite difficult area between what we really want and the reality which confronts us? To what degree can we push What do we compromise on? What do we not compromise on? Those are questions he brings up straight away in this opening address. They are questions which are living a lot of years later, 99 years later now. To what degree do we compromise? What is a sensible solution, and what is a spiritless compromise, where actually we should have pushed much more for what we believe in? It is interesting, I find, to read that opening address with all kinds of questions in mind, particularly what are my ideals for education, and in which ways do I compromise them? In which ways do I really uphold them? How is that? So do go in and read this reading, which it comes from the very beginning of the Foundations of Human Experience, particularly Steiner's address. It's really short. If you are looking for a challenge, go and read it and find the little snippet, the few words which speak to you more intimately than any other. Say, yes, that really speaks to me. Because when we're having the intensive weekends, I actually want to do that as an exercise, that we all read it, and we actually then we discuss, we compare. What do you think? What's the kernel? In which part of that short address does he touch on something which is actually very dear to my heart? This for me is important. That I find in a group of people quite interesting, and a very worthwhile exercise, because it brings up many questions of why did you choose this and not that. And you also find, when I've done it before, the same little micro sentences come up again and again, identifying the key points, the essential aspects of Steiner education.